Are we having that bigger picture? Are we connecting the dots to what is happening globally on matters climate change?
It is very true now that Africa, lying on the equator, right across the equator, has the biggest impact. It has been hit hardest when climate change started hitting us almost 2 decades ago. But it is even worse that now, well, the European, the temperate countries like Europe and North America are anticipating to have the ripple effect of climate change hitting them in the year 2035. For us, it is D-Day. It is now, we actually have 3 years of poor rainfall. We have had very poor crop yield. We have had our rivers drying up. We have had our tourism hit hard by the death of wildlife in the national park, in the game reserves, and every other place.
Okay.
Our food security is threatened. When you cannot harvest for 3 consecutive seasons, in Africa we had to keep food for more than 2 seasons. So you are not likely to have had food from 2019 carrying over to 2022, which means now, as we are today, we are actually facing starvation.
Okay.
And the attempt by government to give money, cash handouts won't help because there's no food in the market.
Okay. Just hold on to that. I want to bring in Dr. Koech Oscar. And Dr. Koech, you are an expert on rangeland management issues. This country, it is massively falling under ASL, arid and semi-arid areas. So majority of the places in the country, when push comes to shove, majority of Kenyans do suffer. Talk to us about, have we underutilized, have we failed to properly turn around the ASL areas to be more secure, shield ourselves from food insecurity, for example?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think what you have said is very right. The country is over 83%, of course, rangelands. We are talking about the arid and semi-arid lands, which occupies much of our landmass in the region. And of course, what we are seeing now is nothing new because we have been seeing droughts coming year in over year out. It's even biblical. Even in the Quran, the droughts have been predicted, and the Quran and the Bible talks about what we need to do about droughts and adapting to the droughts. We have had very many, of course, interventions in the past. Of course, our government, development partners, and of course, global forums have actually come up with strategies to deal with issues of climate change. But where are we getting it wrong? For example, you talk of our country, beautiful Kenya, that we have the National Climate Change Policy 2016, talking about all the good things about adapting to climate change and the mitigation measures. We have the National Climate Change Action Plan, 2018-2022. What have we achieved so far? We need to actually audit ourselves and see where we going wrong, and of course, what we need to do and learn from that. Of course, we also have the Kenya National Adaptation Plan 2015-2030. We are yet to get there. What are we doing? We want to enhance the resilience of our communities. Are we really doing this? We are not. There are many things that are happening in our drylands, despite the very greatest opportunities that we have in this particular ecosystem. So these are lands that are contributing much to, of course, food security in the country, creation of employment into the country, contributing significantly to our national GDP. You look at the land use mass, of course, of these lands, where we are looking about 70% of our animals in these particular ecosystems. And now we are talking about deaths of about 2.1 million so far, with, of course, our wildlife, of course, industry, tourism industry, depending on the same rangelands, where we have over 90% of our wildlife species and diversity in these particular ecosystems. We are now losing over 300 for now, for example, in elephants. But what are we not putting in place? We know what the droughts mean to our livestock and wildlife. It's all about feed resources. It's all about forage resources. But the strategies you are putting in to mitigate to climate change, and the most hit being the drylands, we are not actually, of course, focusing on this topic of providing enough forage, feeds, and of course the strategies that need to go with it in terms of conservation of this feed material.
All right. And briefly, Mr. Daniel, in the short term, because we need solutions in the short term, what are the low-hanging fruits that the country can reach on to mitigate climate change and also mitigate this issue of drought? Briefly, before we take a break.
Thank you. The first step the government should take is to make prudent use of the little water we have. We have, when it rains, most of our rivers just drain to the ocean. But much of that water could be dammed. I know the government has planned on doing 100 dams, but the point is not about the damming and keeping the water somewhere where people could access it, because even if you had a dam, you cannot transport water for about 200 meters or 300 or 2 kilometers at the most by pumping. The government needs to tap water from the highlands and divert it, instead of following the river course, the Tana River, the other river, allow it to go into farmlands.
Okay.
The water draining into the Indian Ocean, we have no contest with any other country. We can do whatever you want with it, divert the water to Garissa, Wajir, and have it available for farmers. The other thing the government could do is to actually do a master plan for farmers who want to do drip irrigation, non-lane fed irrigation, and as much as possible enable those lands we are calling the ASAs to actually support our food chain, for food security.
All right, definitely. Dr. Oscar, in less than 10 seconds, low-hanging fruit, is it, implementing those reports briefly?
Thank you. Low-hanging fruit is that as a country, we need strategies to conserve feed. We need strategies to produce feed.
All right.
And what he's saying is basically we need to integrate crop livestock production systems and support our pastoral community.
All right. Thank you very much, Daniel Wanjuki and also Dr. Koech Oscar. We actually appreciate your time. Thank you. The conversation could go for ages, but we appreciate your input. We take a short break. When we come back, BBC Money Daily, and thereafter more stories from the world of business.